Another ethical issue that journalists have to deal with are situations involving a conflict of interest. And Code of Ethics for journalists warns reporters and editors to avoid putting themselves in any position where there might be a conflict of interest. And this is any situation where a reporter could stand to benefit personally from any stories that they might write or publish. For instance, one example might be a reporter or a journalist who writes restaurant reviews, right? And newspaper readers are relying on these restaurant reviews to provide a very fair and thoughtful critique of the service and food for a particular restaurant. Well, let's say that the restaurant owner offers the journalist a gift certificate for $300 or $400 for food and service at the restaurant. Or let's say the restaurant offers to pay for the journalist's dinner. Well, that would obviously be a conflict of interest because the journalist then might write a very favorable review of that restaurant in order to justify all of these favors that the journalist received from the restaurant owner. Now, for this very reason of avoiding any conflict of interest, some news organizations discourage or forbid their reporters from being actively involved in politics or any kind of community activities that might create some kind of conflict for them that might conceivably bias how they report on stories. So, for instance, an issue that has come up in the past. Let's say that a reporter or journalist at a news organization is gay or lesbian, right? The news organization would discourage or forbid the journalist from actively taking part in a gay pride rally. The argument there is that that would create a conflict of interest for the journalist, because then that journalist could conceivably write a story about that gay pride rally or other issues related to the gay community that are overly favorable or positive. Another related concern, is that news organizations frown on their reporters getting involved in politics, either with conservatives or Republicans. Again, the worry is that if a reporter is a liberal Democrat and is actively involved in Democratic politics, that could lead to doubts about the fairness of that journalist's reporting. It raises questions about whether or not that journalist might provide overly favorable reporting on Democratic politicians and government officials because those are the political allegiances of that journalist. Now, other people disagree with that. Others argue that journalists, despite their profession, are still citizens in a democratic society, and that they should have the right to get involved in community organizations and political organizations, and that journalists are able to separate their personal activities from their professional work. So, something for you to think about here. I guess one final point that I would raise is that this section only deals with the individual concerns about a conflict of interest for individual journalists. I guess I would add that there are also, I think, issues of conflict of interest that take place at a larger organizational level, all right? That news organizations themselves, whether it's CNN or MSNBC or NBC, all of these major news organizations are owned by parent companies, large media conglomerates that themselves have very vested interests in particular policies in government. I mean, most of these larger corporations have policies in favor of lower taxes on the wealthy, lower taxes for corporations. These corporations tend to be in favor of deregulation and doing away with government oversight of their businesses and media outlets and so forth. All right. Well, all right. So you've got these parent companies of news organizations that have particular political preferences, and their parent companies also actively lobby government officials to support policies that are in line with their preferences. So, these media conglomerates have lobbying firms that lobby government officials to lower tax rates for corporations and the wealthy, do away with government deregulation and so forth. Well, I mean, does that then create a conflict of interest for these news organizations that cover government? I mean, are they then covering stories about taxation, tax rates, tax reform, government regulation? Are there reporters covering these stories in situations where the parent company stands to benefit with certain policies being adopted? So I guess that's a question is, yes, we have to look at ethical concerns for individual journalists, but I think we also need to look at ethical concerns about conflict of interest at a broader organizational level and examine how are we going to address these conflicts of interests that occur within larger parent corporations. American journalism is a very competitive business, and one way that these competitive pressures affect news coverage is in this relentless desire to get the story first. News organizations are very competitive with each other to be the first to break a story or report information about a news story. And a lot of times, news organizations, cable news channels, newspapers will promote their own success in getting a particular story first or being first on the scene for covering a story. Now, I think this chapter addresses a couple of legitimate criticisms of this practice of just relentlessly trying to be first with a story. One is it's not really clear how the public benefits from this competitive pressure. That yes, this may lead to us getting particular information faster or quicker, but a lot of times the information that we get is gathered and distributed so quickly that it's wrong, all right? That in this frantic rush to get information out, there are mistakes made along the way. The big whopper, of course, was during news media coverage of the 2000 election, where some news organizations called the election wrong because they were in such a hurry to be first with their news. I think another criticism of this practice of trying to be first with news and information is that it also leads to a lack of any kind of broader context. All we hear about is this murderer was caught, or this person won the election, or this hurricane landed here. All right, that there's no broader reflection or analysis to the story. That these little bits of information that we get first aren't put into any other broader context that makes this information meaningful. Now, obviously, with the success of the internet and online sites as a source for news and information that provide information 24 hours a day, this competitive pressure to be first has grown ever more intense. But the question is, does this desire to be first come at a cost of accuracy, thoughtfulness, and reflectiveness and context?